Hello folks, Dr. Paul here with a video summary for Unit 8. In this unit we had a case study on divorce, and the unit talked about families in transition. And I thought I would take this opportunity to pull out a few slides from a presentation that I've been giving at various conferences for the last couple of years with my colleague at Couples on the Brink, which is on the construct of marriage. And I thought I would provide you with a little bit of a different take and some things to think about as we're thinking about and talking about divorce, a few different ideas that you may not have encountered on the construct of marriage. The title of our talk is called Deconstructing Today's Marriage, an Introduction to Alternate Relational Paradigms. And what we mean by that is the primary partnering paradigm in our culture is marriage. And there are certain assumptions that most people have when they sign up to get married. And most notably, those are till death do us part, monogamy, and you're getting married because you love the person or you have romantic intentions. And those three fundamental assumptions underlie or underscore most of marriage in our culture. And so what we do in this talk is discuss a little bit about the construct of marriage, where it came from, why we have the idea of the marriage that we do today, and the ways that it supports us as a culture and some of the ways that it doesn't support us as a culture. And so again, I've pulled out a few slides from the presentation to just go through with you. One of them is the idea that there are a lot of mixed messages that we received around marriage. For example, marriage is sacred, marriage is forever, commitment is forever, marriage keeps the natural order, society sanctions monogamy in marriage for the most part. At the same time, we hear messages like, well, marriage is sacred, but anybody can get married. Marriage is forever, but divorce is relatively easy to get in today's culture. As far as commitment, oftentimes people feel like the commitment to each other ends when their divorce is final. As far as monogamy, scientists estimate that less than 5% of species mate for life. We gave this presentation in a rural part of Kentucky not too long ago, and an older gentleman in the back raised his hand when we talked about less than 5% of species made for life. And as soon as he raised his hand, I was like, oh goodness, what is he going to say? And he said, you know, your statistics are wrong. It's less than 3% of species made for life. So that was interesting. And at least 60% of married people report having an extramarital affair. And so there are a lot of contradictory messages about marriage. And I think we want to, as voices for the field of marriage and family therapy, of which many of us are, we want to think about having a voice individually in the work that we do and being willing to ask couples some very challenging questions at particular points in therapy when they are contemplating possibly splitting up. If we just look at the idea of till death do us part, which is, again, one of the three pillars of assumptions that most people sign up for when they're getting married. This idea made a lot more sense when people only lived to about 35 or 40 years old, right? And so you might be married for maybe 15 or 20 years tops. And so till death do us part made more sense. Now people are living to the 90s and 100s. When marriage was a business relationship, till death do us part made more sense. There was another reason to stay married. For most of the couples that I've seen in therapy, when they talk about the dissolution of their marriage, there's this sort of success-failure dichotomy, and most people see divorce as a failure of some kind. And I think that is in no small way due to the fact that that's sort of a cultural embedded idea that if people stay together and make it to the funeral home, then their marriage is a success. But if they split up lovingly and respectfully, then somehow that's a failure. And so I think we want to, as therapists, not buy into the success-failure dichotomy so much and challenge some of those assumptions. Can a marriage that ends in divorce be a success? I think that's an interesting question to ask couples, to challenge that idea that when a marriage ends, it definitely has to be considered a failure, especially if there's been successes as far as raising children or launching careers, etc. One of the slides we have is we talk about our work at Couples on the Brink and how the last 10 or 12 years now, doing intensive couples therapy, we've learned a few things about the presentation of couples when they are on the brink of splitting up. And typically there's at least one person that's saying, I'm done with this relationship. And we like to say, is it little d done or big D done? Because many couples on the brink say that they're done, but what they really mean is they're done with this version of their relationship. They don't always mean they're done with this person or being married to this person in any shape or form. So I think that's an important one. The other thing is probably at least 80% of the couples that we see at Couples on the Brink have had affairs, and they are the ticket into getting to the brink and to coming to therapy. I think it's important when we're talking about affairs, is the affair a symptom or is the affair the problem? I think too often in therapy, couples therapists view an affair as the problem, when really it can be seen as symptomatic of a context that was in distress or in some ways not fostering the two people in the relationship thriving. So in some ways, yes, the affair is a problem, but if it's seen as the only problem, you're missing the opportunity to talk about the ways in which the relationship can evolve. And as crazy as it sounds, I've had many couples in therapy that once they've dealt with an affair, look back and say, as painful as that time was, it was also a very transformative time. And it's a time that we can both point to as when our relationship got stronger and we really had to ask some challenging questions of ourselves and each other. So yeah, there's this idea that you're in love, or you love somebody, but you're not in love. And we hear people say this all the time, and that's a common thing, both in and out of therapy. And these are our starting points for most couples that are contemplating divorce. A couple of other important points. Couples that are in distress, it's very easy to lay pathology on them or to lay dysfunction on them. And that's one narrative. It's certainly not the most empowering narrative about couples, because when you're looking toward how they can transform, when you're looking for what the possibilities are, you're not as much focused on what's dysfunctional or unhealthy about them. And it's our belief that when a couple is in crisis, it can be an entry point for therapists to pose questions about various partnering paradigms, and it can be an opportunity for couples to redefine their marriage. And lastly, I just want to mention a few books that if you are interested in some of the current thinking about partnering paradigms, people that are challenging the traditional marriage of till death do us part with romantic intentions and monogamy, there are many voices in our field that are writing about different ways that people can partner to begin with, and then ways that people who, once they have been through a traditional marriage, but they don't want to be divorced, they can look at how they can evolve or transform their marriage in some very interesting, non-conventional, but oftentimes very empowering ways for them. And here's just a couple of books that are really excellent toward that regard. So again, I know we talked about divorce in this unit, but I wanted to just take the opportunity to share a little bit about some of the work and presentations that I've been doing, not only with Couples on the Brink, but presenting about ideas on the construct of marriage. So just reply that you were able to view this video, and maybe with a quick comment of something that it sparked in you, or if you have a follow-up question, I'll be happy to answer those as well. Okay, great. See you soon.